Hey folks, Fernando doing another video for the More Survivalists, and in this case, analyzing this video of a robbery in a store in California. A man defends himself from a mugger with a long gun, an AR15. Let's check it out. We see that the store owner is there ready. The criminal drops by with his AR. Owner shoots with his shotgun, and that's pretty much all there is. But there's a lot of stuff to analyze here, which I'm going to be doing in a second. Let's just continue watching until the end. Short enough video. He apparently notices the criminal even before he enters because he has a security camera. I think he's now, at this moment, checking that security camera on the parking outside. And yeah, here we see, apparently, which would be, I assume it's the same camera that alerted him of this. You know, one of the criminals with a shotgun, the other one is running back to the car, and how fast he shot over. Well, and then one of those is left outside. He jumps in again. He starts screaming, and they take off, which is usually what criminals do when you start shooting at them. Now, let's go this one more time and see a few things. So, as I was saying before, apparently this man has a security camera that is pointing on the outside on the parking lot, which is a very good idea, by the way. And he sees that there's a man getting out of the vehicle with an AR, with a long gun, with a carbine, a rifle. So he already knows this is going down. Now, a couple of things that you may want to consider if you have a store like this, if you are open to the public, you may want to invest not only in the security camera, but an alarm system, and a system that allows you to lock that door remotely with an electronic lock. If you have just a couple buttons available to you right there next to the counter, you can just lock that door and the criminal probably will not be able to open it. So that's maybe one of the best chances of him just, yeah, this is just not my day. Door's locked, I'll take off, right? So one button, switch to lock that door, especially when it's at high hours of, of the night. You may want to avoid, especially when you see that there's a man that's, getting out of a vehicle with a gun. You lock the door, and maybe another button, a silent alarm or an active alarm that is, you can actually hear it, and it also notifies the police. So you push a button, you lock the door, you have the other button, which is the alarm, and as soon as the criminal sees that the door is not open, that there's an alarm going off, he will take off. Very rarely will he try to still get in, shooting through the glass and breaking his way through. That is very unlikely, but even if that happens, then that's why you have the gun to begin with. Now, one other thing, I think I hear him chamber around. I don't know if you see this as well. Yes, he says freeze. The criminal says, mumbled, hands in the air, hands in the air, in the air. Now, a few things here. This man is very lucky to be alive, because with this stance, if he has a shot on this man and he had pulled the trigger and he has his finger in the trigger guard, so if he hadn't been unsure about his actions, or if he had reacted in fear by just pulling the trigger, he could have easily shot this man. So there's a very good chance that it's mostly a matter of luck that this man is alive. Now, there's a few things that you can do. If you are about to be mugged, you can just, just give up your cash register, whatever money is in there. And that would be, in theory, the end of it. This guy is probably just looking for money, right? Now, the other aspect of this is that you're surrendering yourself to an armed mugger that he may decide to just end it right there for you. So you're basically betting your life on the good intention of the criminal. Could that work for you? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. That's going to be up to you. In this case, with this scenario, I think he acted accordingly. If I was the guy there in the counter and I see that someone with an AR is getting out of the parking lot and rushing into my store, I would really just shoot as soon as I see him. He says freeze. I think he says freeze. The store owner says, just like the other guy says hands in the air, right? The mugger says hands in the air. The robber, I think he says freeze, and I think he chambers around with that shotgun. Pulls the shotgun out, takes a shot, and he actually hits him in the air. Another thing that I don't know for sure, what kind of shell was he using? Keep in mind, at these distances, birdshot, no man. Birdshot in a small apartment where it's just a couple feet away or maybe a couple yards away, Yeah, and you want to avoid the famous over-penetration, especially very thin walls. Yeah, that could be an option. In a store like this, with these distances, you want to have buckshot. Buckshot, I think it would have dropped him if he had a solid hit. In this case, he does not drop. I assume it's not buckshot. I may be wrong. Maybe it is buckshot, and the guy is either very lucky. He took those pellets to the arm and shoulder, and he's, injured but not stopped right there instead of being hit by double-aught buck. Could be. It could be also that this is just birdshot and simply not as effective as the store owner intended. But it just shows that it's not stopping him in his tracks. And that also means that if he had decided to shoot, you would be in a very precarious position right here. So here is very easy to feel that, the shotgun did its job. Well, the shotgun did fire as intended. Now, if you have a pump-action shotgun, I'm not sure if this man is fast enough to pump it. I'm seeing that he doesn't actually rack the shotgun so as to chamber a fresh round right after shooting, which is what you usually are trained to do when you take a class on how to use a gun. By the way, folks, if you haven't taken a class on using a firearm for self-defense, you own a gun and you don't know how to use it. This is basically like owning a car and not actually knowing how to drive it. My advice is get a class with a qualified firearms instructor, giving how things are these days, the economy, how expensive these can be. My advice is I wrote specifically a book for you if that's your position. It's called Street Survival Skills. I mention it on every video of mine, and I explain the basics that I've learned over the years that actually served me very well over the years, and stuff that I learned back in Argentina and in different countries where I've taken class. Usually good instructors will teach the same basics because they work. Instead of mumbo jumbo bullshit ninja stuff, the basics work very well. And the basics that I explain here are the same that apply to a situation like this, or a robbery on the street, or a home invasion. So these things are important. The way in which you react to something like this, I think it's spot on. I would have been, if I see the guy getting out of the vehicle and I have my shotgun, I would have been ready to welcome him right like this before. Not wait until he runs through. You see how he hasn't got the shotgun already. He has it in his hand apparently, like waiting until the last moment. And he says this thing, freeze. You're not a cop. You don't have to say freeze. There's a mugger, there's a burglar in your store with a gun pointed directly at you. You have no obligation to say freeze or stop police. You don't have to identify as a law enforcement officer. You're not one. Your obligation is to just keep yourself alive and sell stuff in the store, not be a cop. When you see this, you're already at risk. Already here, you should have shot. He doesn't do that. If this guy had been a little bit more, finger in the trigger. If this guy had been just the C clamp. I mean, this guy, I don't know if he has training or not. I very much doubt that. But he probably saw enough YouTube clips so as to have an idea. And he has his AR kind of set up there with probably a fake EO-Tech of some sort. Finger in the trigger, this guy was not so sure about taking action. He probably had an idea of how to use it, but he was just expecting to scare the guy into submission. If he had been willing to shoot him right away, this man would have been dead. At least that's my take on this. Because he had the drop on him. Now when he sees that he pulls out the shotgun, again he does what most criminals do. He runs away. If he hadn't run away, man, would a pistol been better? If this guy stays there and starts shooting at him, and this guy has to shoot back at him, pumping the shotgun and putting another round in the chamber, probably he hasn't got the training so as to be fast enough so as to make a difference. Probably a pistol or a revolver or some sort of, like an AR. An AR would have been ideal for him. It's also true that with this kind of distance, if you have pellets, it's going to be spreading somewhat, and what would be a narrow miss would have been a hit with a shotgun. So the shotgun does have certain advantages. Personally, I think that a semi-automatic shotgun already with a chambered round, or trained well enough so as to quickly, put a round in the chamber if you don't want to have that ready to go because you may have other staff nearby or whatever reason you may have. Ideally, you have your gun with a round in the chamber and safety on in a case like this. But let's say he has a semi-automatic shotgun and I see him in the camera, then yeah, I chamber around in my semi-automatic shotgun. As soon as I see him walking through, I put a couple shells on him, and that's the end of it, and I'm not exposed to the risk of getting killed by this scumbag. Now, the story doesn't end here, because one of the things we don't see is that this man, 80-year-old store owner, he suffers a heart attack, which is very common during robberies and shootings, especially people that are not used to this kind of thing, and really who is used to it, right? But especially people of a certain age. I mean, in many cases that I know of, it happened to people that were really not all that old either. So the thing about being mentally prepared, being physically prepared, being in good shape, and of course, age will not work in your favor. The older you are, the more likely you are to have a medical emergency after something like this. But the heart attack during a robbery, during a shooting, very, very common. Folks, that's going to be all for now. I hope you learned something from this, some more food for thought regarding all of these things. No, the shotgun is not that anything you shoot with is, instant incapacitation. That's movie stuff. It may end up working very well or maybe not so great, depending on, specifically with a shotgun. It's going to be depending on a lot on the shell specifically that you're using, okay? Guys, that's going to be all for now. See you on our next video. Take care.